we're very privileged to have a child of a parent with a brain injury, and the other 3 have a sibling with a brain injury. I'm going to have them introduce themselves individually. We used to do this on a national level, and it was extremely helpful for families to understand what their other kids were experiencing when they were so involved with the care of their family member who sustained the brain injury. So I have a list of questions that I prepared and they've seen, and they're going to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about why they're here, who in their family was injured, and then I'm going to start asking them a few questions. At the end, we'll have the mic in the middle again for other questions that might come that I didn't think of. So let's start on the end with Evelyn. And Evelyn is an employee of the Brain Injury Association of Florida, so we had to get special permission for her to be off duty to do this. So Evelyn.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Evelyn Chavez. It's my older sister, Maria, and she was injured as a toddler, about 3 years old. And she lives in New York with my mom. She has wonderful care over there. My mom's her main caregiver. When she comes on vacation, we kind of, help my mom out, and my mom will go on vacation, or she'll stay home with me. Oh, and my boys have learned. I have 2 boys, and they've learned to, help out, and we're helping out little by little because my mom's getting older. So,
James.
Hi, James O'Brien. Welcome everybody. My brother John's an attendee here at the camp for quite a few years now. He was hit by a drunk driver when he was approximately 13 or 14 years of age. So it's been quite a long haul. I'm kind of like the relief person for my mom. We've always lived close by for the last 20 or so years, so I'm the person who will show up to give her the relief so she can have at least a normal life for a half day, or at least enjoy herself or get some of that release that you do need as a caregiver for a head injured person and such. So, yeah.
Sue?
My name's Sue Hill. My brother Jim is 5 years younger than me, and he had 4.5 years ago he had AVM, which is a malformation in his brain rupture, and he was in a public place and they saved his life. And we found him about 4 days later in the hospital with, they finally contacted us, and they had done brain surgery on him and removed a large part of his left frontal lobe. And from that moment that I found him there in the hospital, I just felt I was with him all the way. And he got out of intensive care and went on to rehab, his 3 weeks in rehab, and then came home, and he had a home in Deerfield Beach, and I moved into the house with him. And over the last 4.5 years, we've kind of inched him along to where he's not going to be able to be on his own again, we don't think, but he's moving in with me in my house in Tennessee, and we put a little addition on for him, and we're combining my family and his family, and my husband and I will be with him for the duration, I guess.
Justin?
Hi, I'm Justin Boswell. My father, Matthew, I was 6 months old, and he was also hit by a drunk driver.
I was.
He was. And my grandmother's took care of him since he's had his accident, obviously. I didn't get to spend much time with him as a child, so I don't know a whole lot about what has went on when I wasn't around. I've just recently been re-invited into his life as 3 years ago. So it's been interesting to learn a little bit about the head injury and what's going on. Being informed, we left on the note that he was a vegetable, and of course he's not.
Known that.
I mean, he's doing very well. He's come a long way in 28 years. And I'm just here to help Grandma out as much as I can with giving her a break.
So I'd like to start with having you tell a little bit about what was your initial reaction when you found out that you had either a sibling or, in your case, you had no reaction for a while being 6 months old. So we'll skip you on this one. But we'll catch you when you get a little older.
All right.
So whoever would like to take that. What was your initial reaction, James?
Well, mine was a little bit indifferent because I was the last person to find out. My brother was hit by the car at, say, approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and I was first found out about it about 9 o'clock at night. And so I never really had to deal with it for a lot of years. Over the years, it was always drugs and alcohol for about 30 years.
Were you still in Pittsburgh with your mom at that time?
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, so it took a long time. There was a lot of rejection, a lot of pushing away, a lot of who did this, why they did this, why it happened, and things like that.
So it wasn't that you got into substance abuse because of it,
No,
which
no.
often
That was
happens.
Previous thing, yeah.
Okay. That was the age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, 15's a little, 16 a little early, yeah.
Evelyn,
But
you have-
nonetheless, you know.
My sister was 3 years old, and I was 2. So I didn't really notice that she had a brain injury until I started school, and my other friends were like, "Oh, this is my sister," and everything. And my sister was different than my friends' sisters and everything. And that's when I really started noticing. And as I got older, different stages in my life, my mom, little by little, with all the therapy that we went through and taking her to her doctors and everything, that's when I, realized, well, why is she different? And it's because of the brain injury she had.
And you told me of something very interesting when I first met you, that you, because of a language barrier, you went on all appointments with your mom.
A lot of them.
And you missed school as a result.
Yes, and I kind of resented that for my mom as I got older, because I was, I felt, it's not my responsibility to do this.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, it's not my responsibility. As I got older and realized, wait a minute, she can get, and eventually she did get help from other people, but because she didn't speak English, and we spoke English, we were her translator, but we weren't very good because of our age. So my brother, she tag team. I have an older brother, and then I'm the youngest. My sister Maria is the middle child, and me. My brother just, refused. That's not my problem. It's not my responsibility, and
that's
I was more sympathetic. So I went along, obeyed my mom and everything until social workers started looking, and you can't keep her out of school to come. So there was, a lot of resentment. There were stages of resentment. So it was difficult. Yeah. Especially when school started, and I started realizing, she is different, and why is she different? And my mom started explaining, and the social workers and the therapy that we had.
Justin, I know that you left the state with your mother after your dad was injured.
Correct.
Do you remember at what age you really began to grasp how your dad's life and your parents' life had changed?
To be quite honest, with the same as James, I had gotten into drugs as I got older, and I never honestly put any thought into it. I mean, I wondered here and there, and of course when I was 17, I gave my grandmother a call to see how everything was going, and then it was another several years after that before I contacted him again. So I led a pretty rough life there, and just to be honest, I never put any thought into it.
But now you're here helping your grandmother take care of your dad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It took
so
a little bit of
turnaround.
A little sobering up and getting on the straight and narrow, of course. Absolutely.
And Sue, I know, Sue, how devoted you've been to James, and the fact that you had to leave your family in Tennessee, and actually took a job down here, didn't you, to help James?
Yeah, Howard had been working for a friend of mine. I happened to be here working for a friend of mine anyway, so I kept on working for her in the restaurant. But I when he was in the hospital, I just put everything aside. I was able to not show up for work for a while until he got out of intensive care, and then I could go back to work, which was very fortunate. But I've been able to keep that same job and work until. And even when I went back with Jim, I've been back to Tennessee. The last couple of years, he's been able to go back a little bit longer and a little bit longer. The first year, it was just a few weeks. The second, the third year was a couple more weeks. And last year, we went for the whole summer. So now he's finally come to the point where he can let go of his house, not wanting to, but you know, it needs to be done, and we need to get consolidated back in Tennessee.
Difficult
so that's what we're going to do. It was but it seems like if you were patient enough, I didn't want to do it against his will. I mean, I could have just, come on, we're going, you know, but it would have been very, very difficult for him.
Everyone should have a sister.
Very, very
like
difficult.
Sue.
So I waited. So I was patient.
For those of you who were in school at the time your sibling was injured, did it affect your grades or your performance, your attendance?
I
mean, we know it affected your attendance.
Yeah, my brother took it very hard.
Yeah.
My brother, you know, and he turned into drugs and everything. So my mom had, you know, that problem also.
Yep.
My brother it was just very hard for him to accept it. I used school as an escape. I wanted to go to school. I love my sister dearly. You know, I will be her guardian, you know, when my mom passes away. But as a young child and as a teenager, you know, the peer pressure and everything, it was tough. It was tough. My mom put a lot of, you know, she's your only sister. You have to help her out. And I didn't mind helping her out, but I also had a life. And my mom was learning also. This happened in the 70s, early 80s, which my mom, you know, learning the language, learning, you know, how to, you know, regarding brain injury was very hard for everybody. So I did good in school because I wanted to have that escape. That was my only escape. So,
great.
Yeah.
James, you were still in school.
We had quite a balance going there between me being the hellraiser, my brother being the, you know, the star on the football team, my sister turned to religion, and then John in the hospital. So we we ran the gamut of all the offerings right there and put my mom through it all. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. She had her hands full, that's for sure. You know, but I was just train wrecking in school. But then look, my brother did, you know, very well. My sister did very well. So.
And you've done very well now.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah.
Just got to keep going focused. You know what I mean? So.
You've talked a little bit about the other siblings in the household, how they reacted. I know in my household, I have 4, including my son with the injury, and they all acted differently. I couldn't understand any of them half the time, and they ranged from 16 to 25 when Tim was injured. But I think that's a common thread as well. No 2 kids in the same household are going to act the same. They're not going to take the injury and understand it the same. One will want to learn about it, another one doesn't want anything to do with it. The responsibilities for all of you really changed. Your life changed dramatically.
Absolutely.
And you grew up in Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Your responsibilities obviously changed.
Yeah.
James didn't.
No responsibilities until.
You didn't have any.
Yeah,
I love it.
I pushed my brother away. I rejected him. I didn't want to be with him and all that. And then I only became part of it starting about late 87 to 90. And that's when I moved closer to my mom, and I've been there ever since. So.
And you've been a real rock with John.
Trying to be, but I still had my up and down, but you know what I mean? There's always that interaction, trying to figure out what's going on, the understanding of him and everything. It's just such a learning experience, you know, the way they react to what you say and just the whole thing, you know what I mean? And it depends, like, he won't want to listen to you because you're his older brother. He's not going to take your advice. You know, he'll listen to somebody else, but he won't take your advice type thing, you know what I mean? So I don't have to listen to you, you're my brother, you know? Like you're gonna give him bad advice, you know, in the situation he's in. So yeah, it's really a tough road, to tell you the truth.
Your friends outside of the family, did they react differently to you? I know some people complain about my brother's different or my sister's different now. I don't want my friends to be around the house, so they won't invite people into the house. Did any of you experience anything like that? How would you know? You've only been around the last few years.
I have friends.
And I'm sorry, Justin. Does it bother you to explain your dad to your friends?
Not one bit.
All right, great.
I'm proud of
That's
him. He's
great.
came a long way from his accident.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
I think as a teenager, when you're in middle school, that age,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has a sibling who has, an injury, and who, you invite your friends over, they have an outbreak. Your mom usually comes and can calm you down, but somebody with a brain injury, if I would invite my friends over, and my sister I had several friends come over who were okay with it, but when I had several friends come over and there was one that she did not like, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
She would pick on her. I don't like her here. I don't want her here. And it was hard to explain to my friends. She would say, well, how come she doesn't like me? And I says, well, she has a brain injury and going through all of that. At teenagers, they're like, well, forget it. You got to be in a certain clique and everything. So it was kind of hard. I had those situations with certain friends, and if they didn't accept my sister for what she was, then you're no longer my friend. But it was a little bit tough, especially the teenage
and that's
years.
particularly tough when they have some inappropriate behaviors that become embarrassing.
And that you can't control, because
Yeah,
my sister
right.
did, I don't like her, and, the language and everything, and it's like, you have to leave because she's not going to calm down.
Yeah.
So that was kind of hard both ways. So.
The cognitive changes really provide a lot of difficulty in families understanding. I know this is true of my oldest son, who refuses. His brother can't get better 31 years post-injury. He's still waiting on him to understand everything he says. So, I think that's the hardest thing that you can make others understand, is why they have changed cognitively, react more slowly, anger more quickly. And was it difficult for you all to understand those kinds of changes?
I still think he plays us out once in a while, man. Believe me. I see all of a sudden, when it's here, then all of a sudden it's over here, depending upon the circumstance. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, you have to. It's weird how it plays out under certain circumstances. You know what I mean? Yeah, you can remember this, but you can't remember that. Okay, I got you now.
Or sometimes you feel,
yeah,
are you doing this on purpose?
Yeah.
You just don't want to remember because you don't want to get scolded or anything. So that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And Jim recently has had some really dramatic changes, hasn't he?
Well, he all along, from the very beginning, when he began to recover and began to be able to talk a little bit again and stuff and understand, he'd all of a sudden, at first it was like every 5 weeks he'd have this great day. He could talk, he could understand, and then he'd say why can't it be this way all the time? Why doesn't? And then it would go away. But it happens more than not now. So it isn't like he's, it's not convenient for him. He'd like to be good all the time if he could, but it's just the way it's working. It's going in these phases of getting better, and then it'll go away. Or one day he'll get up and be able to talk, and the next day he's stuttering all around. And
But he's talking now in group settings, which he didn't before, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's changing. It's definitely changing all the time. It's been little baby steps, but it's going to continue, I think.
Usually there's a lot of disruption and often a lot of dysfunction in families. Sometimes it was there before, but it's exacerbated by brain injury. How did it affect your relationship with, say, you've explained that your mother at times really laid on you heavily to help. How did it affect those relationships, and how did you get them back together?
Therapy.
Okay.
We went to group therapy. We went to family therapy because I believe it was, my mom is my sister's main caregiver, and it's a lot on her, and she was learning. Besides that, she had two other children, my brother and myself, And my brother got involved in drugs, and that was another situation. So I think with me, since I was I don't want to say, you know, the more comprehensible one, and she was like, well, you should know better and everything, but there were times where, you know, it was very hard. So we had to go into group therapy so the therapist could, you know, help us out how to speak to each other and how to understand each other. So, and thankfully we had great social workers that were always involved in my sister's life and would always keep an eye on my mom to make sure that she had that balance with her 3 kids through therapy. So.
Did any of you, would you say you've had, I mean, we all have long-term effects, but the long-term effects can either be positive or negative. Do you think the injury affected your goals and maybe what you chose to do with your life?
Yes. As I got older, you know, my mom got wonderful services in New York City. A lot of people helped her out. And I wanted to return that. And you know, and that did affect. My sister's a great, you know, I love my sister dearly. She's a great person. She has her ups and downs. You know, it's very challenging, a lot of patience, but yeah, I wanted to return that.
And you went into?
I went into social work, yeah.
Right, that was the point I was trying to make.
I went into social work, yeah. I wanted to return that, you know, I wanted to go back into the community. I moved here to Florida just to escape the cold weather and everything, and hopefully, you know, I want her to come here. My sister has a great adult daycare center that she attends every day, so it's very hard to take her out of that. But you know, any chance that I can fly on a weekend or anything like that to visit her and help out with any other organizations and any volunteer work. But social work, we had great, wonderful social workers help us out throughout all our lives. And that's why I chose a social work field.
Anyone else change your life as a result of the injury?
Going forward, from this point on, you have to look at that, and that's where you start realizing, uh-oh, what am I getting into here? What retirement do you have? What are you looking forward down the road as being part of a caregiving family in that unit that's going to hold it together after you know, who would take care of Jim after you go, or, you know what I mean, anybody else goes, who's going to be getting it? You know, everybody else is pretty much running and going their own ways, and you have to figure out what's going to happen, and that's the part. For me, it wasn't really, I really didn't care what was going on in life. I was too busy self-medicating up till about 7 years ago. And so now that's when you start waking up to realize what you're doing, where you're going, and things like that. And then this is coming into your lap at this point after 30 years. And then your mom, you know, my mom's like 76 years old. And after her battling leukemia, you're like going, uh-oh, how much longer is she going to last? And then what's going to happen then at that point?
So that's a real concern for all of you.
I don't believe head injured people do well in those, you know, like say specifically John, he's so used to having his independence that if you try to control him, he's going to strike out with anger and he's going to get mad. And then next thing you know, he hits somebody. Next thing you know, it's, uh-oh, you're deemed to be this, and then you're placed over here, and that's it. You're just suitcased away and then done like that, you know what I mean? So it depends on the environment that people are in and what they're going through and all that. You have to really worry about it.
I'm sure your mom has really given a lot of thought.
Oh, yeah, no, we have, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
My future's been planned.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think any of us want
retirement, was there
our
one?
other
I don't know, I don't
children
think
to
so.
take care of our family member, and we'll do everything we can. But like was explained this morning, the cost of the long-term care is the issue, and I don't see that changing. But Sue, I know that you found a resource in Tennessee also for Jim that has been very good. Is he still going?
Yeah, as
to
soon
Crumley House?
as soon as we got back, I thought maybe I'd take a little break, but right away I knew I wanted to bring him back to the Crumley House. It's a brain injury rehab. It's started out, I think, 35 years ago, something like that, as just a small day program. And it got donated more property, and they built a a nursing home type facility there where they have 14 residents in that building, and then they have a house with 4 other people living in that, and then they have day people that come in. So I've been bringing them to the day program, and it's very, very family and supportive. All the other survivors there are very supportive of each other. This time we came back, we started coming there. Every time I go to Tennessee, I'd bring them there for a short period of time, and then we drive in the parking lot, and before we even got out of the car, someone's yelling, "Hey, Jim, how you doing?"
Yeah.
And it's so
those
friendly.
are the social supports that were discussed this morning.
Yeah, you can't replace that. And so I feel like if, I have a brother and a sister, and I don't think either of them would take him into their home. And my mother is elderly, and she wouldn't be able to if something happened to me. If, possibly my husband would still take care of him if something happened to me, but I do have the Crumley house. And I would be okay if that had to be where he went.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Let's stop right now and see.
My oldest son, Gabe, has 3 siblings, so this session has been of particular interest to me. And really, probably the most important question for me is to kind of understand from you all's perspective, how do you feel toward your sibling that was injured? And I know as parents in our support group, we've talked about this issue of resentment toward our injured person, which is kind of like, oh my God, I can't even believe that we would feel that way. But honestly, sometimes those feelings do kind of come. And I don't know if you've had those sorts of feelings and how did you deal with them, or are we just like, whoever has those kind of feelings, are we just like inappropriate feelings?
When I was younger, I would, a teenager, it was tough. I have this sister like this, and, why is she like that? My other friends had siblings, and they would go out together, roller skating and things like that. But my mom was very, we're family. We accept each other the way we are, and this is what God gave you. This is your sister, and you love her. And I come from a very large family. We embrace Maria. She's wonderful. She's a handful. As you get older, she's the only sister that I have, and I love her dearly. But as a younger child, it was difficult. It was difficult. I didn't really want that responsibility. And I didn't know there was anything wrong with her until I started elementary school. And she started elementary school. She's only a year older than me, so we went to the same school. She was with the ESC program, and of course, the teasing and everything. And I'm like, well, she's my sister. How dare you tease? She is my sister. And so the peer pressure as you get older. My mom got her into a different school for children like her with brain injury, but still the neighborhood kids. There were certain times of life I didn't want to be seen with her because she was inappropriate. We went somewhere and she would, throw a fit, and here we are, 12 and 13, and you're still throwing a fit, and she was uncontrollable. So it was embarrassing. It was very embarrassing. So there was a lot of peer, teenage pressure and everything. But the older you get mature, you understand. And she is Marie, and she is who she is, and we accept her as she is. And she's a great person.
All the things you mentioned, you'll continue to go through those in processes and cycles. Mm-hmm. It never goes away because there's always new things that come up, new feelings that arise as you change and grow in your life. You're going to always have the why thing. My brother being in a wheelchair, the biggest factor was first you never want to go be seen with him in public. You go through that phase, and then you go through the phase where every time you go out to a restaurant, you go somewhere here, they're always going to put you at that table. You know what I mean? There's always the one table that they'll put you at for the
far away.
Yeah, or wherever, or right out front, or wherever it is. And, you know what I mean? Yeah, you'll find out if you go to certain places, then you're going to find out you're so limited in what you can do. You know what I mean? Even going back to the 70s now, all this ADA stuff. No, you try to sometimes avoid certain crowds or certain areas because it's going to be a burden on you to have to push them in a wheelchair, to have to take them here, or just to go to the bathroom, or when you try to plan your day and that turns into like a 20-minute bathroom break or half-hour situation, where you have to keep reminding them, hey, stay focused on what you need to do, and you know, that can cause a lot of stress in you that you're going to have to deal with. So there's that. I don't think it's ever going to go away, because you want to be at your mind's thinking, I want to be here at 1 o'clock. Okay, I started getting ready at 10 o'clock, and then you're about to leave, they're going to the bathroom. Well, wait, we're supposed to be here, you know, so you're always going to have that feeling, you know. That stuff's never going to go away, you know what I mean? It's going to be a constant on you that you have to figure out how you're going to relieve your stress, what you're going to do to make yourself decompress throughout the course of any minute of any day, you know what I mean? What you can do to balance yourself out,
It's a lot of planning.
Yeah, so you're going to be in trouble, you know what I mean? Because as you get further and further from the point of the injury out into life, the support system becomes less and less, and we all know that. Everybody is probably a little more longer term, and that's what I've seen. You know, the support system grows less and less as you get further out from everybody. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and Joe and I were talking earlier about how we have to deal with, there's the other siblings that go on with they graduate from school, they go on to college, to career goals, get married, and the person with the brain injury is still at home, very resentful of the person's, the other family members that are going on with their lives interrupted. So that's the other standpoint of the person with the brain injury who has to deal with that as well. So you all saw when my son got up at the mic at lunch, I wish I had a shepherd's crook. I wanted to jerk him back. I never know what he's going to say. And quite honestly, I didn't hear what he said. Somebody told me he was appropriate, so I don't know. That's the good sign, because there's always those times when he's not. So when you first, had you seen your dad over the years at all?
Not up until 3 years ago, other than when I was, I think 5 was the last time I'd seen him, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, I don't remember when I was 5.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure he would, but of course, you know.
So what was your reaction when you first met him?
I was honestly a little nervous. I didn't know what I was walking into. Of course, I'd never met this whole side of the family as an adult. So coming into the house that I wasn't familiar with, and of course I just came for a vacation. I didn't come to stay. Okay, so I'm coming down for a month vacation. I get here, and of course I fall in love with everybody. Of course, my father, my uncle, he's excellent. He's excellent with my father. Of course, my grandmother, excellent person. You know, they all took care of me, supported me, and helped me get acclimated to, you know, understanding his situation. Of course, not knowing or ever had been around head injury in my entire life.
You had a lot to learn.
Yes, I came in like just brand new, like, hello. And of course there's no filter, so he says what he wants. Just like you said, you know what your son could have said. And that's the same with him. You go out somewhere with him, you never know. He might embarrass the crap out of you. And it can happen. It can happen very easily.
Obviously,
you know,
it doesn't bother you, though.
No, I don't care. I'm not shy at all. It is what it is. You can't help it. It's, you know,
That's great.
It is what it is. I mean, there's no changing it now. And of course, he's doing great. Can't complain.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I love you, son.
No, I love you too.
Are there any questions, any other questions from the audience? I'd like to get, you know, some other ideas from you all.
What's common between both of you is that something caused you to come back and kind of step up to the plate. And I just kind of want to understand a little bit further, because to some extent, some of my children have kind of taken that position with my Gabe. You know, it's kind of like they've, you know, it's not their problem kind of thing. And I pray to God that someday they'll sort of step up to the plate. So I'm just curious, what brought you guys back to that position?
Well, as far as the drugs and all that went, what brought me to get away from them was mainly I had a kid. I had my son, I was working, and it's hard to maintain a drug habit, diapers, you know, I mean, between the rent and the power bill, you know, And then eventually I just kind of got away from it. And then, of course, I got back into them as me and my girlfriend at the time had separated. Got back into drugs. And then, of course, I called my grandmother. And that was like, she said, come vacation. And I was like, perfect opportunity to get away from the drug life, which, of course, I did leave my son behind, which is a little difficult and still is at times. I talk to him on a daily. But point being is that's what got me away, was the vacation. Of course, I came here and I loved it. You know, I fell in love with my whole family here. Well, of course. So for me, it wasn't so much, you know, the family that really got me away from it, that it was having a son and then the family, and it was just a combination of things that got me away. You know, I just kind of, something snapped and I woke up. I mean, you know, and it eventually will happen. Everybody will come around. It comes full circle. They'll see what's going on, and hopefully the siblings will be there for, you know. Well, yeah, of course, I'm sure. Sure they'll be supportive eventually.
James?
I think it was the fact that I was had such turmoil from the age of 14 on, when my mom, you know, threw me out of the house. I lived on the streets for 2 years, and then arguing, fighting for like so many years. Like you just said, it was the perfect thing. It circles back, and then she asked me to come back into her life to help her with another situation related to a relationship that she was involved in that wasn't going so well. And once I got to that point, I didn't leave, because you could see there was a need there. And like I said, a lot of it, it was a lot of marijuana to keep my patience and to be able to keep up with what's going on. You know, there's always going to be that level of, oh, you know, you think you're done with your list is never going to be done. There's always going to be a list for things to do when you know, with somebody with a TBI in your family, or your brother or your mother, you know, anybody. There's just a constant there that's never going to stop. And you know, just for the love of the family, my mom, I really can't pinpoint it to one specific thing, but you know, it was just a matter of just coming back around, and that was it. So. Mm-hmm.
If I could ask, how old were you when you came back?
Oh no, I was well into I was late 28, 29, yeah, and I've been there ever since. So. Yeah.
I was, let's say 3 years ago, 25. I was 20, well, yeah, 20. I just had turned 25 when I moved here. So it took me quite a few years, because I was also about 14 when all my turmoil started in my life. So
they see it coming. They know you're gonna, if you're helping the way I'm helping, people that enter your life are gonna see that. They run. They know what's coming. People are aware of that. Uh-oh, you're dedicating this much time to your family, to your brother, to this, to that. You lose a lot of relationships in your life because of that reason. You know what I mean? Because your dedication to the family, a lot of people push away, or you'll lose a lot of friends, a lot of people that, you know, in personal relationships that you would have had that you don't normally have. So that's why a lot of people just say, oh, I'll put myself away from it, you know, create that distance. Then it's out of sight, out of mind type thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel the same way about friends. Yeah, I dedicate. I don't go out and party and all that, so of course,
long-term girlfriends will haul on you, man. They'll be like, no, we're out here, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's hard to find them friends to come over and hang
I'm
out.
out, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it's just a matter of fact, I was getting into another relationship, and she goes, well, what's the plans with your brother? And that's the one thing she asked me, like, what is the long-term plan? What's the long-term plan with your brother? Like, uh-oh, you know what I mean? That's the question you're asking me. You know what I mean? And that's a tough question to answer. And then you have to answer it. You know what I mean?
Go when you answer
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? How much love is there? You know what I mean? So yeah, and that's what I think a lot of people are afraid of. You know what I mean? They know. They see it, you know, and they're aware of it. So.
Was your sister all the way already away from home when John was injured?
Yeah. She turned to the religion, and she never, you know, she's never really been back. You know what I mean? So, you know, yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm the oldest. My sister, she's the baby, and she was injured. 8 years now? Jennifer. My sister's Jennifer. So, of course, I'm the one that will definitely take her if something were to happen to my mom. You know, I'm more financially stable. I have more room in my house, and you know, I've taken those steps to to do that. She's obviously not as bad as a lot of people here are. She's a lot easier to take care of and everything. But I know that with my brothers, if they were asked, they would step up also. So I don't think, like right now where your children are, they probably don't feel the need to step up, but when they need to, they will, because the love is still there and the need is there, and they know that. So I don't think they will resent them. I've never resented my sister for it. I've maybe resented my brothers a little bit for not maybe being able to be the ones to step in when I'm gonna need help. But I think that they would if they needed to. You know, so I think that your children will be fine. You know, they'll step in. You know.
I'd like to add to that because my older brother turned to drugs, and he was in, you know, rehab in and out. But I guess my mom always told him, you know, you're part of this family, and when you're ready, you know, to come and accept everything, you know, we're here for you. I come from a very large family, a lot of uncles. So, you know, he was rebellious. He went through all that, you know, that stage and everything. And I guess him being a male and my sister, you know, being a female, you know, what do I do with her if something happens to my mom or something happens to you? You know, I think he was in that tough situation. He didn't want that responsibility. As we got older, he, you know, went into drug rehab, rehabilitated himself, still has his issues, you know, always, you know, get support group and everything. But as we got older, you know, same problem with James. You know, he would find a girlfriend and, you know, well, what's the long term? Your sister's going to take her because we're not going to take care of her. So always a situation, you know, if you're fortunate enough to find a, you know, a lady, you know, friend, partner in life who's going to accept that. My family, from what I remember, and you know, we just left him alone. We left him alone, and whenever he wanted to come back and ask questions and be part of it, he was, you know, we accepted it. We didn't criticize him. We were told, you know, just let him be what he wants to be, and he'll come back home and you know, be part of the family again and accept it during, you know, just give him some time. And he's back, and he helps out as much as actually, he lives near my mom, and he helps more. I live here in Florida, so I go back and forth, and she comes here and vacations, and, you know, I take over on the weekends. But my brother's a big help now. He did, you know, he's back. So you got to give them time.
And I think that's more common, that they may pull away for a while, come back, go away again. We have just a couple minutes left. Does anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I'll tell you a little story.
Well, my mother and my daughter have both, from the very beginning, stepped up to the plate. They deserve a standing ovation of their own. But my question might be more to you, Carolyn. I've never been in the position of having to teach my children, you need to step up. You're going to need to step up. My daughter's that has the brain injury, she's very high functioning, so we don't deal with wheelchair. We don't deal with a lot of things that you've addressed today. But how do you, as parents here, how do you suggest that we raise our children? Do we raise them in the environment that this is going to be your responsibility, or do we make life plans that do not include our children, our other children?
Oh, that is a tough one. And I think that's so individualized. I mean, and we have all thought, don't want my kids to be burdened with this. But, you know, the reality is many of us are going to have to. And in my own situation, my 16-year-old daughter at the time of injury refused to go to the hospital. Her grades went, and she was a very good student. Went away to college one semester, said, don't like this, came home. She does fine now. My next one had just gone away to college. She dealt with it best because she wasn't there. And she will become my son's guardian once I'm gone. It's already set up. She's already had the classes fingerprinted, everything. She's the standby guardian. She is a widow. She lives in South Carolina. My youngest daughter, whose grades failed, She's married, lives in Alabama, and for many years, they've been married 27 years, and they have no children. And I always thought they deliberately chose not to have children for fear that they would need to take care of Tim, and she always denied it. In recent years, she has finally said, well, it's probably going to be a whole lot easier so that we can help Julie take care of Tim, even though my plan for Tim includes his placement in a facility once I'm gone, because I'm a widow. My oldest son was 25 at the time. He walked out of ICU at 6 weeks post. Tim was in coma for 3 months. But he walked out of ICU and he said, no one can wake him up. He's never going to wake up. And he walked right out of our lives. And he was completely out of the family for 8 months. Fortunately, none of mine ever got into drugs and alcohol. I'm so blessed. But Scott, the oldest one, he now, since my death of my husband 20 years ago, he took over a little business. And so Tim works with his brother now. The brother still thinks, has this pie in the sky. Tim is going to get better. Tim will be able to take care of himself. Why would you spend all that money putting him in a facility? I will take care of him. And I'm thinking, my God, on a daily basis, they fight like cats and dogs. So he will never take care of him. So I think as families, we each have our problems. And the real issue is how just to get along with one another until we can move to that next step, because there's always a next step. And you're always waiting on the other shoe to fall because you don't know what's going to happen. But, I think I'm so pleased that, you've had the opportunity to hear some of this that your children are probably not sharing with you, but this is really the reality of brain injury, and I thank all of you all so much. And we're right on time.